Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christy Ruffino.
Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. I am Christy Ruffino, the host of the show, and today I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing my guest, Dr. Marilu Hunt. Now, on a personal note, I met Marilu, a few months ago, and I feel like we're so close. We met virtually in actually another women's networking online group, and we became mastermind partners, and then just kind of got to know her and saw the passion that she has to teach around gut health. And then when I was in Texas in February, we had the opportunity to connect, have coffee, and actually be in the same room together, which was a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do right now is give you the formal introduction of Dr. Marilu so you can really recognize some of her credentials and see why you should believe everything she has to share with you today on gut health. Dr. Marilu
Almeida.
Thank you.
I know, it's a tough one.
I guess I didn't know your middle name. So when I saw that on the form here, I'm like, oh, I'm not saying that right. So Dr. Marilu Almeida Hunt is a certified international health coach and functional medicine pharmacist. She worked for 17 years at University of Hospital in South Florida as a clinical pharmacist and the director of pharmacy services. She specialized in disease state management and was a national speaker for several major pharmaceutical companies. After years of working in the hospital, Dr. Hunt realized she needed to move in a new direction. Therefore, she began to focus on integrative nutrition and functional medicine. She earned her Integrative Nutritional Health Coach certification from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and is an active member of the Institute of Functional Medicine and Functional Pharmacy Medicine Alliance. Her big goal in the world is to help educate her clients about the complex nature of the human body's digestive system and the simple language that the body uses to scream dysfunction, with the major culprit being the standard American diet considered SAD, S-A-D. With its excessive sugar, refined carbohydrates, and trans fats, the SAD diet is a contributing factor to the rise in disease, weight gain, and just making us feel overall yucky. Now, I added the yucky part. That wasn't in her official bio, but I know that our health is really our gut is really the core of how we live and breathe and live in the world. So I want to welcome you, Dr. Marilu, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'll give you a couple of little fun things about my name. When I was born, my name was Maria de Lourdes Almeida. So Almeida is my maiden name. But my parents always called me Marilu. So then they formally changed it and I kept Almeida as my middle name. And then I married Leon Hunt, so then I became with the gringo, I went from Marilu Almeida Hunt to, Marilu Hunt. So it's been a fun little ride with my name, but thank you for the very fun introduction. I know it's a lot of big words in this integrative functional world, but it's very fun.
Yeah, a lot of words. And I know I know when I met you, and I know you as Marilu Hunt, and when you shared with me that you have a Latina background, I completely would have never guessed that based on your name.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's a lot of heritage there. And I know your story goes into a lot of that on why you are kind of focused on this and how that all came together. So, I want to kind of start with your story because we like to teach through our story. That is the focus of our podcast, is to share our story to really inspire change in others. And I know your story is the reason why you are so passionate about this. And I know you also are sharing your story in our current Overcoming Mediocrity book featuring empowered women. So I want to give a little plug for that. So if anybody listening to this podcast and wants to connect with Marilu and get her story, make sure you reach out to her because I know she would be so happy to autograph a copy of that book for you. So let's dive into your story, Marilu. Why are you so passionate about gut health?
Yes, the reason that I'm so passionate about gut health is because as a child, I'm very fortunate to have great parents, and I had a very fun childhood. I did, growing up, struggle with different digestive issues, even though I was an athlete and had a lot of fun in school, and I was a good student. And both of my parents were immigrants from Cuba. My father was a physician, my mother a pharmacist. And my father actually was the chief medical officer in the Bay of Pigs invasion. So when my parents started here in the US with nothing except their educations, and I, as a child, remember how when I did have all these stomach problems, whether it was, chronic constipation or stomach aches or all these different things, my parents would try different things. My father being a physician, they'd start with medicines and different Western world, I call them, remedies. And when they didn't work, then my mother would come up with a bunch of Cuban remedies. And she would always say, in Cuba, all these things would help. And I would say, well, they help for a little while, Mom, but they're not really the solution. And as I went through schooling, you get busier and busier as you're growing up. So, I hit college and my stomach issues continued. I went to doctors and they ran different tests and they kept coming back saying, everything looks good. And, maybe they would give me some medications just to make me feel better. And, but really, they never got to the root cause. What was really causing my stomach issues? And I, at the time, just thought, well, this is just how I'm going to have to live. So, and it's not the most comfortable journey when you're, living with stomach aches and stomach pain and all the different unpleasantries that come with, digestive issues. And when I hit undergraduate school, my issues were getting worse. By the time I got to pharmacy school, I went for more testing, and just life continues to get busier, right? You keep moving on, you graduate, you take your boards, you start to work. And then I became a wife, got married, had 3 wonderful kids that I'm very lucky that because they're successful and they're doing great in school, but just busier and busier and busier. I I was promoted at the hospital. So I was working at the hospital. I was there for 17 years. And, in the hospital, you see people in their sickest states, and I'm a pharmacist. So we give medications, we run procedures. And, but what I noticed is that a lot of patients kept coming back. So they keep coming back to the hospital. So were we really fixing their problems? And I really started to, wonder, is this really our solution? Is it really healthcare, or is it sick care? And so I continued, at the hospital, and I started to get worse. So my hands started to swell, my joints became problematic. And that's when I became alarmed. And I realized that I needed to make some changes before I develop a full-blown autoimmune disease, which is what happens when gut issues are untreated. And so I moved on. I actually was lucky because I was able to, my husband's job moved us to Geneva, Switzerland. And when I moved to Geneva, I got to step back. And so I took a step back. I realized, wow, these people, they really believe in wellness, and they take it very seriously. They believe in traveling and taking some time off. And so I slowed down. And when I came home, I was at a continuing education program when I heard this quote at this meeting, and it said, recent studies show that today's generation of children may have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. And I thought to myself, wow, that's just crazy. And I was looking at myself saying, gosh, here I am. I feel like I've always been on a healthy journey, and I was in the healthcare. I'm a healthcare professional. And we're finally at a time frame when our children, that's a staggering statistic to
It
me, to
is.
think that, we've been living longer and longer and longer. In the early 1900s, the average life expectancy was 45. Now we live to, 80s. And to think that our kids may not live that long just made me take a step back.
Yeah, that was really startling to me when you shared that statistic with me, because we kind of tend to just take our health for granted and our what we deal with. And when we hear, when we hear or look back in the ancient days, and people didn't live very long, and now we're living longer, and we just realize that that's going to continue. But if we keep going the way we are, it's not going to continue. We need to really take a look at the things we're doing to our body. And you sharing that was a real startling thing for me.
Yes, it's true, because we're really known today as the fast food generation. If you think back to when we were young, I mean, McDonald's had just come out, so it was really one of the only fast food restaurants. It was a treat to go there. It wasn't what we it wasn't the norm. And yeah, the standard American diet. I mean, you go to the grocery store now, and it's just aisle after aisle after aisle of processed foods, and
Yeah.
people kind of skip the veggie sections, and more the whole food areas. And nutrition, it's critical, and our guts are it's central to our health. And
Hmm.
so it's incredibly important to pay attention to what we're eating. I think that at the end of the day, instead of medications, the food and a food and the fork, might be our most important tools to help transform our health.
Yeah. So I know my kids had a lot of McDonald's when they were younger, because I didn't realize how bad it was. And that was like the norm for their generation, is all the fast food and the processed food and TV dinners and all the things that we didn't realize how bad they were for us. And now we're becoming aware, but it's just the marketing messages that we're seeing out there they're just targeting the kids. And so there's a challenge for us to live healthier, because it's getting easier, but it's also more expensive, and it's not as convenient. We can't just, throw something in the microwave. We have to go back to eating whole foods, and sometimes raw foods, and just things that are definitely more better for us to get the actual nutrition for our bodies.
Yes, it's true. And I find it interesting. I was just traveling. It was my husband and I's 25th wedding anniversary, and we're making plane reservations, and they're asking, are there any allergies, or any special diets? But you don't even get food on planes anymore, so what difference does it make during COVID, in a way? But then we make restaurant reservations, and those are some of the first questions. Or you have a birthday party, and you have friends coming over, and today we have to ask, are there any food sensitivities? Are there any I don't remember any of that when we were growing up. And it's just if we look around, young kids, 2-year-olds, they're becoming hypertensive. There's obesity issues. There's just a lot of chronic disease at an earlier age. And I do think that if we focus on nutrition and understand the gut better, because I think that a lot of people don't if you watched, any show on TV, there's all the ads. I mean, first of all, they're junk food ads, and then they're medications, right? So it's okay to eat this. If you take this medication, it's going to help you with your different gut issues often. And a lot of people don't realize, they think, oh, I'll just take these different antacids, not realizing that our stomach actually needs acid. It needs acid to get rid of, the bacteria that's coming in that may be unfriendly, and then allow the friendly ones to go through, or the different nutrients that are coming in. The body processes a certain way. So the alimentary tube, which is our gut, it's a 30-foot tube. It starts in our mouth and ends, well, we know where it ends. And but in between there, it's interesting because people don't understand that there's a role for every part of it. So there's a role for chewing. People, people don't slow down today. That's why, the title of my story is Rest and Digest to Feel Your Best, because people eat on the run. A lot of people don't have time to slow down for the meal, so they don't chew properly, which you need to chew your foods. And in order to properly digest, because if you don't digest your food properly, then you're not going to absorb all the nutrients that you need.
Yeah. So I know some friends that are, they have chronic digestive issues, and they have for as long as I've known them, and they've just become desensitized to it. They think it's normal. They just feel that they have to live with it for the rest of their life, or they'll pop Tums or antacids, and that's their way to just kind of manage that stress that's happening in their body instead of listening to their body. I think we've just gotten to the point where, throw a Band-Aid on it and ignore the problem. And then that problem just escalates, and then it manifests in so many ways. And like you said, one of them is autoimmune diseases,
right?
Which I know will wreak havoc on our body in so many ways. And it's hard to go back once you've gotten to that point.
Yes, chronic disease and autoimmune disease is on the rise. We see, cancers is on the rise. We see rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease. Now we have celiac disease, just tons and tons. You don't even realize it can be skin disorders. It's just, it's on the rise. Most people, most adults, actually, 50% of adults have at least one chronic disease, and 25% of adults have at least two or more.
Wow.
So when you go to the doctor today, I always find it interesting, because at my age, I've known my physicians for a while, but if I get a new physician, when we've had to move in different places, they always say, what medications are you on? And I'm like, I'm not on any medications. And they're always shocked that I don't have a multitude of problems, but I take a lot of supplements, and I believe in healthy eating. So,
yeah.
And exercise,
And,
lifestyle.
Yep.
So that's where the health coaching piece is important, because it's not just about all the medical things. You have to really pay attention to everything, to lifestyle, and to auditing your environment, and making sure that, on average, a woman puts on 158 products. I think they were saying that, pretty sure it was 158 that are actually toxic to our system. So
Wow.
Between makeup and soaps and lipstick and lotions and cleaning products, it's amazing what it can do to your body. Yep.
It's scary when you find out all of the things that we do that are so bad that we had no clue. But we are becoming more aware of that now, and that's great. So I would love for you to hang on for just a moment, Marilu. We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, because now that you shared why you're so passionate about this, we want to dive into some tips that our audience can actually apply to their life to live a more healthier life and get their gut back under control. So
awesome.
Hang tight. All righty.
Okay.
Anyone can network. Yes, anyone can meet people and collect business cards. However, not everyone knows how to network in a way that will provide them with a regular supply of new and repeat business. Treasured Tribes is more than just another networking book. This revolutionary book will show you how to adapt different strategies with your networking efforts that will get you better results than ever before. To grab your copy, visit www.treasuredtribes.com. Well, welcome back to our episode of Overcoming Mediocrity with Marilu Hunt. And Marilu, I know you have some great tips that you want to share with our audience on how they can get their gut back into shape, start living healthier lives, and on the flip side, having a healthier body. So what do you want to share with us? How can we start being better gut managers?
Okay. Yeah, I actually, I think, and believe it or not, that the methodology behind this is actually simple. And it's interesting because when I was at the Institute of the Integrative Nutrition doing my certification, I remember that they kept saying, this really isn't that hard. Eat more vegetables, hydrate yourself, eat a little bit more fish. So kind of just some simple guidelines that we really all know that we should be doing, but oftentimes we just, we get really busy. And so I believe that we do have to take a step back and audit our diets. And I think that that's hard to do sometimes because when you meet with a nutritionist or a functional person, they might teach us that we need to go on these very, very restrictive diets and elimination diets. I think they're very hard to do. But I do think that, food mood journaling is a very good way to audit your diet and then not just what you're eating, but how you feel after you're eating. Because it is important, because if you're getting gassy or bloated, let's just say right after you eat or while you're eating, we have a different approach to possibly making some changes on supplements or different things. If you're having these issues right after you eat, or maybe a couple hours after you eat, we think of it very differently. So, and we might offer some different solutions based on that. So it is important to audit your diet, your environment, some of the different stressors, because in today's world, I don't think people slow down. So, keeping some type of a journal, I know it doesn't sound very fun, but it is because you get a lot of information out of it. And then what we do is we remove what's bad, toxic, or harmful. It sounds simple, but it's not, because it's hard to really identify sometimes. So I always try and say this isn't something that we fix overnight. I have group programs and some coaching programs that are really targeted for a couple of months. I think it takes a couple of months to truly make a sustainable change and a life-altering change. So it is a little bit of work. I don't want to say that it's not, but in the end, instead of continuing on a journey with, more digestive issues, we can actually fix things. So I like to give people hope. So once we identify kind of what the stressors are or the problems, we start to add back slowly different foods to see if you can tolerate them or not. And maybe add some supplements that'll help heal your gut. And then we do pay attention to the timing, not only of supplements and stuff like that, but the timing of when you eat. Because I do work with athletes, and athletes, they practice at certain times. They have, they know if they're going to a tournament or a meet or whatever, they might have to play a few games in the morning and then maybe a few in the afternoon. So it really is important, not only what you eat, but when you eat. I'm hoping that didn't sound very complicated, because it's not complicated, but it does take a little bit of work.
No, not at all. And I know I sometimes can tell if I eat something that I probably shouldn't, and then I feel icky afterwards. Like yesterday, I had cheesecake, and I've been really trying to avoid dairy and sugar. Now, sugar I have a bigger problem with, but I ate that cheesecake and I was halfway through it, and I'm like, well, this doesn't even taste that good anymore. I'm kind of losing my desire for it. I mean, the desire is still there, but when I'm actually eating it, it's not as satisfying to me. And then when I was done eating it, I just felt terrible. I just was like, I was phlegmy. I just felt really icky. So I think doing that journal is something that will really help us recognize those type of things, because without paying attention, we'll just keep doing it. Because I've just had years and years and years of believing that, oh, I love desserts. Well, sometimes I eat a dessert and I don't feel good afterwards, but if I don't pay attention, then that won't change. And then food fuel, that's a key thing that you kind of brought up, because we should be eating um, for the benefit of our body, not necessarily always just because we like the taste of it.
Right, right. And it's interesting because, unfortunately, we don't have warning signals, right? If you go in your car, you get a maintenance light or an engine light or an oil light turns on to, let us know. In fact, the newer cars today, it tells you it's time for your 5,000 mile maintenance or whatever. And all these different lights pop on. And I always find it interesting that we take our car every year to get it serviced, right? It has like an annual service. You go and you get your oil changed every 5,000 miles ish. And we know to take care of our cars, we might keep a car 3 years, 5 years. I happen to keep cars longer. We kind of run our cars into the ground, but still a car will last, 15 years, but our bodies can last 80 years. And oftentimes we really don't give it the best fuel that it needs to really run optimally, because our engines, our gut does need, the proper fats and the proper carbs and the proper proteins to really perform maximally, so that you don't, I like to think that we don't just want to feel good when we know that we can feel great.
Yes. And there's so much conflicting information out there. And that's one of the things that me personally, I have a hard time with, because of course, we all know sugar is bad for us. And there are certain things about certain, um, I don't know, what we eat, we know is bad, but then you'll be doing research on the blood type diet, like what should you eat based on their blood type. And just recently I had a Chinese medicine doctor, kind of tell me what I should eat based on my body shape. He told me I should not eat vegetables ever, which was completely contradictory to what I've learned for so long and what makes any sense to me. So we have all these conflicting messages out there. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is listen to your body. Right?
Exactly. It is nutrition. It's a funny science. We're always hearing you are what you eat, or you are, I think, what you digest and absorb. But it's true when you take all these integrative nutrition courses. Nobody, there's all kinds of food out there, but nobody really knows what to eat. And the thing is that we're all individually different, right? So our biological individuality, one person may thrive on a diet, but that diet might be toxic to somebody else. So I just don't think that we all are built to eat the same things, just like we're not all built to take the same medications or something like that. But yeah, there's hundreds of diet theories out there. Today the buzzwords are a ketogenic diet, or low carb or vegan or vegetarian, but there's actually a peanut butter diet where
oh my gosh, I want to be on that one. I'd probably balloon up like a cow, but it sounds like it would be fun in the process.
Yeah, we had experts, and every module they were teaching us, just eat raw foods. And then the next day they would say, raw foods are terrible for you. You need to eat, steamed foods or this type of food. So I agree that it can be very confusing, but I think that's where taking a step back and really looking at what you're eating so that you know what's really good for you. Yeah. And but sugar, I will say, sugar is is the enemy.
There's nobody that's going to tell me sugar is good for me, and I wish I'm looking for that person.
But I do follow this 80-20 rule. And I think that if you could be focused 80% of the time, and then you still have 20% of the time where you have fun. So, I think if you can heal your diet, because what people don't realize is, the lining of our stomach intestine, because our stomachs are so acidic, we actually, it changes every 3 to 5 days. We get a new lining. So I feel like if we can take care of our epithelial, our inner gut, then I think that maybe when you heal your gut, if we can properly heal it, then maybe that 20% of the time when you want to have that dessert or something, that you might be able to enjoy it better.
All right. I like that theory. All right, Marilu. Well, I know you have something special that you want to share with our audience. And we're going to have the link for it in the show notes below. So you don't have to worry about spelling it all out or anything, but give us a good or just a basic understanding of what that is.
Okay, sure. I am going to have a webinar that will be on my website, which is the Gut Recharge. So Gut Recharge is my company. And the title of the webinar is, because I feel like we're all, being taught that we need to train harder. So train more, maybe twice a day workouts, or, in order to truly be healthy. And I feel, I think we need to train smarter.
Smarter.
So,
I love that. Yes.
So the title of this talk is Train Smarter, Not Harder, 3 Steps to Avoid Burnout and Optimize Performance. And so what that entails is a review of the digestive system, because I feel it's so important. So understanding how it works and why that's important to pay attention to all the little signals that it's giving. And then I review the microbiome, which a lot of people don't know what the microbiome is, but it refers to the rainforest of bacteria and viruses, fungi, protozoa that live in our bodies and in our genes. And we need to balance these bugs in our guts. And it's really important to understand that, so that we can really absorb nutrients properly. So there'll be a whole section, a review of the microbiome, and then I'll go into nutrition and diets and the roles of proteins and carbohydrates and fats, and which ones are good for us and which ones are bad for us, because I do believe that all calories are not created equal, so if you have a, hamburger on one hand or some fresh fruit on another, I guess depending on where you get the burger, how you make it, might make a little bit of a difference. But I do believe that we do need to understand healthier foods and how they work in our bodies, and why it's important to, eat certain types of foods that might be better for your system, for you versus somebody else.
Perfect. All right. Well, I am looking forward to that webinar. Again, everybody that's with us today, please check out the show notes below and connect with Marilu. Jump on her webinar, contact her to buy an autographed copy of her upcoming book. And stay tuned for future episodes of the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. So thank you, Marilu, for joining us today. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. Thank you, Christy.
All right. So the best way for you to internalize what you just learned today is to teach somebody else. So take something you learned and share it with a friend, or better yet, share it with a few of your friends by posting this episode on your social media channels. And don't forget to tag me. I'd love to be able to chime in and connect with your friends and see how we can support Marilu's mission to help everybody have a healthier gut and live longer and more prosperous. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.